The Coach Curl podcast is brought to you by Think and Grow Business, the home of the Think and Grow Business Mastermind. If you're serious about growing your business, get serious and join a mastermind group today. Find out more at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au.
Hey there, it's Coach Curl here, and welcome to episode 178 of the Coach Curl podcast. Today, we're talking about discovering those newfound leadership skills in a crisis.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul. I see you. All right, John. Let's finish on. Coach Curl. Great job, guys.
Hey there, and how are we all? It's Coach Curl here. Welcome to episode 178 of today's Leaders, the Coach Curl podcast. What a world we find ourselves in at the moment. This episode is being recorded during the coronavirus scenario. It's something that none of us ever would have thought that we would have been going through within our lives, within our businesses, within our journey. So we're all probably looking at the world in a vastly different way because ultimately we've been tipped upside down. We've been landed on our head. But there's so much negativity around the space and there's so much personal impact that has been out of our control. But there's also been some positive stuff that I just want to share. And I know that may sound quite difficult for you to believe. What? People are losing their jobs, Tony. People are losing their businesses. People are getting sick. People are dying. That's the reality of what we face. Absolutely. There's people that are flaunting the stay-at-home edicts. We've got other people that are judging them. We've got other people that are denouncing them. We've got hysteria. We've got panic. We've got complacency. And it's all out there in droves. Yet, I'm going to talk about some of the positive things that I'm seeing. You know, 2020 will be remembered for all the wrong reasons. COVID-19 will be one name that we will never forget, and that's worldwide. But one of the things that I also want companies and businesses to never forget is the extent of leadership that is being shown, especially by frontline leaders. So yes, we've had some leaders around the world that are navigating their way through this and making some tough decisions, whether it's for their business, for their country, for their government, for their teams. And we see that the strategic senior level leaders are navigating in a world that they've never had to navigate before. And of course, I take my hat off to them. You know, some people may be critical of them. I'm certainly not. How can you be critical of someone navigating with the right intention and the right concept? But one of the things that we should never lose sight of is the extent of our frontline leadership. Now, when we talk frontline and essential services, a lot of the media outlets will focus in on things like healthcare, you know, our government services and all of this stuff, and our police force. And of course, they're doing an amazing job. But my background is retail. And I want to focus on the frontline leaders and the staff that are in retail because I'm seeing them doing an inspiring job. And an inspiring job without too many accolades, And what I'm seeing from the retail leaders and store leaders is that they're inspiring their teams in ways that they never ever thought they would have to. They've been keeping them focused and they've been keeping them safe. So when we look back on COVID-19 or on 2020, I think it's important that we recognise that because we've got leadership skills that have been developed while in the throes of an international crisis. We've seen leaders keeping their team safe while putting up with the most ridiculous and panicked behaviour from some of their customers that have been completely out of line. They've been abused, they've been bullied, but these retail leaders have picked them up, stood up for them in many, many cases, and somehow kept them providing a very professional service. Our frontline retail leaders have certainly stood up, and that's something as a retailer I'm incredibly proud. Leadership at the front lines, well done. Because often they're the least resourced, often they're the least developed, yet somehow they've been charged with leading their teams through the biggest crisis that we've ever seen. So let's think about some of these skills that they have built up during this time. Having tough conversations. It is tough for a junior manager, or when I say junior, someone under 30, to be having a conversation in a specialty retailer about people that are suddenly being stood down, that have suddenly got no hours. Now, okay, the edict comes from head office and there's probably some form of written dialogue, but the person having those conversations with those team members is usually the store manager. Now, they may have a small team of 4 and 5 and they work so well together. They're close-knit. They could almost be termed as like friends. And all of a sudden, the store manager is sitting down saying, hey, I've got to stand you down. All the time, knowing that they're being stood down as well. So when you think about the skill set of having those tough conversations, when you think about the skill set of handling conflict and negative opinion, the amount of people that are making negative comments in stores around, stock issues, around service levels, about social distancing, and our leaders and our frontline teams are standing up and putting a smile on their face each and every day. They're handling that conflict. The leadership have learnt to focus on the important things. And I'm seeing that with the way that they're working with their teams and looking after their staff. They've increased their time management skills. Without a doubt, there is a need for them to be productive as shelves are emptied consistently and the need to keep resourcing. They've also had the challenge along the way is that maybe their teams have grown because they've needed to put on those additional resources. So these are all things that are skill sets that these leaders, these frontline leaders, store management, have been developing during the time of this crisis. And the last one is being visible and leading by example. Now, I would suggest that if there has been any retail manager that has been sitting in their office during these times, that would be a store that would be struggling. So to lead by example, to be on the front lines, to be helping out, to be guiding, to be working with those customers in conflict is something that leaders need to hold on to. It's something that you don't lose. So when we work through this, many retailers have, of course, been forced to close. Those tough conversations they've had to have with their staff about being stood down. In many cases, these leaders were being asked questions that they did not have the answer to. Have questions themselves which couldn't be answered. But in many cases, they've aligned with the company directive. So congratulations to those leaders. They faced that challenge and they're going to come out stronger leaders. And my advice is don't ever lose those skills that you have gained. Don't ever think I had to pull that out of the hat for the corona crisis. Keep it in your toolkit. Keep developing that. To those leaders in healthcare, essential services and retail, thank you. You've kept the service. You've kept your teams engaged. And I can just have an empathy around that. That would have been so challenging to keep teams engaged. They're also exposed to the fear and anxiety and stress that's being driven throughout the general society. So to keep your teams engaged and to keep them serving the customer, well done. You've uplifted them when you've needed and you've managed to maintain that focus. You may have developed leadership skills that you didn't know you had. You may have developed resilience that you didn't know you had. You may have developed empathy that you didn't know you had. You may have developed emotional intelligence that you didn't know you had. You've developed confidence around conflict. You've become more focused. You've become more productive. You are a better leader than you were 4 months ago. And your quest, if you choose to accept it, is to not to lose that. You've developed the skills in the most trying of circumstances. You will have inspiring stories to share, to motivate and inspire. Don't lose that. Because when we come through this, those stories will serve you well as you continue your quest for growth, that desire to build a better you. Conscious leaders develop themselves with intention and with courage, and that's what I'm seeing around all our essential services, but especially within our retail teams. You know, I could only think about, what those retail teams are going through as an ex-retailer, but I couldn't even imagine the anxiety, the stress that's happening within our hospitals and our health systems. So for people leading teams in those environments, thank you and well done. But I really want you to stay in that zone of intention and courage. Stay in that zone and watch yourself soar, because that's going to be one of the big positives that you take out of 2020, the year of COVID-19. Thanks for tuning in to today's Leader, the Coach Curl podcast. It's being brought to you by Think and Grow Business and the Coach Curl Academy. We're strengthening leadership, mindset and business through personal, professional and business growth. And it's available at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au and go to our online portal at thecoachcurlacademy.com. If you liked this episode of today's Leader, please subscribe, share and like amongst your network. If you know someone in those essential services that needs to be hear this, please share. We want to get this message out. My message of thanks, my message of gratitude, my message that you are stronger than where you were. So, and I really do thank you for that. We always appreciate reviews on whatever platform that you are listening to. So please help us get this message out. Well done to our frontline leaders in this time, but don't lose sight of that growth that you've had, and don't ever lose sight once we get through this, because today's leaders stand tall, they're stronger, they're braver, they're wiser, and as per always, don't ever forget the golden rule. Yes, you know what it is. Just don't be an arsehole. I'll see you next time.